Hi, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us today for this interview. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say. You guys formed the basis of the early few teams at Army, and you began the program for us all, and we thank you. So I'm going to hop right in and ask the first question of Ellie. Tell us how you came to attend West Point and how you came to be a player on the women's basketball team, Ellie.
Okay, Dee, thank you. So I am Ellie Griffin, and I live in northern Colorado now after I retired. And in the fall of 1975, I was a freshman at the University of Tennessee, and I was majoring in physical education. I planned to try out for the basketball team there, thinking that I might have a chance. I played 2 years of varsity in high school, and we had a decent team in a competitive league in Northern Virginia. So I thought, I could make this team. And to get in shape for that, I played field hockey that fall. So the basketball tryouts were, I think, early November. And the coach at the time was Pat Head, who later became Pat Summit. And she was only in her second year of coaching at the time, a year and a half out of college herself. But already she was a really strong uh, leader. And I guess one thing I just noticed, I'm going to mention that you're still in the frame and it isn't focusing. It didn't turn to us, to me.
It is on the recording, so don't worry about that. Just keep
Okay,
going.
okay, cool, cool, good. Okay. So anyway, so Pat had really sharp, very strong, capable woman and a natural leader from the beginning. I mean, it was really impressive to be around her. So the tryouts were really competitive. And I did not make the team, but she was really nice about telling me that. And, I realized the situation, so it wasn't a big deal. And I went on to play intramural sports with my friends from the field hockey team for the rest of the year. So that worked out fine. So then when I went home for Thanksgiving, my parents told me that the law had just been passed that the military academies were ordered to admit women the next year. And my dad was an active duty colonel who was also a grad. So he, was very familiar with what was needed to be successful there. And so both my parents really suggested that I apply. And by that time, I had decided I did not want to be a PE teacher. So this was a good way, this is a new challenge. I knew that if I went to West Point, I would get a good education. If I graduated, I was guaranteed a job and I would be serving my country, which I felt was important. So I went ahead and applied for a nomination from our congresswoman from Tennessee was Marilyn Lloyd, and I got a nomination from her, applied to West Point, got accepted, and showed up on our day in July of 1976. And the way I got on the basketball team is that so later, I think it was the second half of Beast Barracks, the cadet basic training, they held some sessions for new cadets who wanted to either try out for a core squad team or a club squad team. And these sessions were run by staff members for the teams. So it was a chance to get together and see what do we have to work with here. And that was particularly important for the women's basketball team because Dr. Peterson and the others who were trying to put together that team had no idea what they had to work with because none of us, as far as I know, were recruited to play basketball. So, that was a chance for us to get out. They figured out, well, what is our experience? Who has played on a team? What's our skill level? And can we maybe field a competitive team? And by the end of those sessions, they decided that yes, we can. And so later that fall, they went about putting together the team, getting scheduling games. And in the fall, we had real tryouts, and I made the team, and that's how I got to play Army basketball.
And that's history. Awesome. Christy, how about you? How did you come to attend West Point and then play on the team?
Well, I was looking for a scholarship somewhere, mostly anywhere actually. Um, and I worked with this particular guidance counselor who was very nice, and I was off traveling for a volleyball regional championship. And when I came back, I got notified by her that, gosh, they admit women into West Point next year, and that's the first I had actually heard of it. I had no idea. Growing up in Florida at the beach. I was not in tune with the military at all, other than we had a lot of Navy people around. But I was looking at ROTC, any kind of scholarship I could get, whatever the case may be. So anyway, I who was that? Senator Lawton Childs, I believe, was the gentleman who I was trying to get a nomination for, and I quickly found out that he had no more nominations. So I didn't take the PT test that they, I don't know if everybody did, but anyway, a notification to go down to University of Florida and take some kind of test. So I didn't do that because I couldn't get in because the senator was full. And then I got a letter saying, "Oh, you should come visit West Point." So I called up the name on the letter and saying, "I don't really think I should come." And then I went through the whole spiel with him, and he said, "Oh, well, you should just go ahead and come on up." I think one of the only people I really met was Doris Turner, and that's the first time I ever took actually a plane flight was going up to see West Point, and I got sick, so that was a
Wow.
memorable flight. That was a lot of fun. And I had to actually borrow a coat because it was, I think, March or April, and it was freezing up there.
Hmm.
Uh, Obviously, the cadets that were there, but to me, it was absolutely freezing, and I didn't have a winter coat because it was Florida. Um, so when I met the guy who was, I guess he had a tranche of people that he would take around and things of that nature, and he asked me what my scores were, and I said, "Gee, I never took the PT test because blah blah blah." And he said, "Oh, I can get you some clothes and some shoes. Let's go to the gym." And as it turned out, it was actually Central Gym, which of course is near and dear to all our hearts.
Hmm.
Um, did the did the test, and he said, "Okay, thank you," and uh, went back home. And then about 3 weeks later, I find out that I have a nomination. I didn't know that you could get special nominations because, of course, there are such things. And that was how I got into West Point. And the reason was financial.
What a great story. And then what about the team? How'd you land on the team?
Well, actually, I tried out for volleyball. As Ellie said, they were trying to figure out what they were going to do and how they could get sports and that kind of thing. And I went ahead and met somebody to see if I could play volleyball. Sorry, the dogs. Um, and as it turned out, no, that wasn't the sport. That was going to be basketball or nothing. So sure, I tried out for basketball. We'd won the state championship and felt I was a pretty good candidate at the time. And I remember going on. See, we did it outside on a whole bunch of courts that they had set up, and there was quite the mix of women there. That's best way I can put it. And everybody had a lot of heart, but there wasn't a whole lot of talent that showed up until that core group came together, and then it was a whole lot of grit, and as opposed to maybe more than talent, it was the desire to play and do it well, win or lose. They would know that they were in a game and that we were playing. So
Very cool.
that was it.
Very cool. Reggie, why don't you talk about what the challenges and opportunities were, um, and what the team faced when playing on those first few years of the Army women's basketball program?
Sure. I'm Regina Todd, and I currently live in Devens, Massachusetts, which is the old Fort Devens. As far as challenges are concerned, I think that the most prominent one for all of us was likely being in the first class of women and being plebes in the first class of women, with everything being new and everything being turbulent. Um, and um, Basketball was just a club sport at that point in time. I think we became varsity the second year.
Hmm.
Being on a club sport and being a plebe, there were pretty significant challenges, not having tables, still having to do plebe duties and responsibilities, and being able to make it to meals on time and appropriately attired. So those were the big challenges that I recall at that time.
Very cool. Were there any positives to being on the team at that time?
Yes, there were. It's interesting that although we were a club sport and, the newness of women at West Point was kind of an anomaly, women's basketball drew crowds to Central Gym. Gym was always packed. And as Christy alluded to, we didn't have much talent, but we were well conditioned. We were extremely aggressive, and we played a very physical game. That the male cadets, quite honestly, were shocked at how physical we were in the game. Um, but winning games, particularly with the teams, the Ivy League teams and some of the others that we played, and more than just holding our own, but having a pretty substantial winning season really provided, let's say, credibility and respect from some of the upperclassmen. As a plebe, I was in a company that had a male cow who was on the men's basketball team. And, they would come to watch first thinking it was going to be a freak show, but they came to really respect the heart, the soul, the grit, and how we physically commanded the floor regardless of the turnout of the game.
That's great. Great story. Carol, do you have anything to add about the challenges of that first team or the opportunities that arose from playing on the team?
Well, like Reggie said, Carol Barkalow from St. Pete Beach, Florida. Like Reggie said, in the beginning, the thing with the women, we couldn't hide anywhere. So anywhere we went, we stood out. And she was talking about eating in the mess hall. We would come in late from practice. So as a plebe, you had to leave when your certain bell came in or your light came in. And obviously we weren't done eating. And so when upperclassmen would go by you, you're sitting at attention eating. And of course, they're like, Beanhead, why haven't you left yet for dinner? You're supposed to be gone. And you stop eating and you have to explain that, you had authorization because you were at basketball practice. I don't know how many times I said that. And hopefully they wouldn't haze you and tell you to get out and, and go. So, but Reggie's right. After a while, they started to kind of like coming to our games. And there was actually a cadet who was, he was quoted in the newspaper saying that he came to watch the freak show. And we won that game against Skidmore. That was our first game. And our first season, we went 15-5. We played JV teams. And, as the others have said, what we lacked in talent, we certainly made up with in heart. And we ran the other teams to death. I was the tallest on the team at 5'8". But I did beat most of the women who were taller than me when we jumped. But I will also tell you that there was so much camaraderie that first year that we really bonded well together. And it was a wonderful time.
That's great. Yeah, you really got to create a community finally for the women. Okay, Ellie, how did playing basketball at West Point shape the person that you are today? And in what ways has your experience as a college athlete inspired your life after graduation? You're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, so as Carol just mentioned, there was a lot of camaraderie on our team, and that was really important. That we worked together as a team. We learned to support each other, both playing basketball and then outside of basketball, and having those skills. That those are things that I needed to do through every job I had the rest of my life. That really helped me for my entire life, and so that was so valuable to have that experience. and have these friends. And in terms of being a college athlete, one of the things that did is got me motivated to participate in sports after I left college. I mean, I always enjoyed playing sports, making friends on sports teams, and was able to play softball into my 50s until I got, arthritis kicks in, and there you go. But yeah, that always meant a lot to me, and that I totally benefited from that experience.
Very cool. Okay, Christi, answer this one. What is one of your favorite memories from your time playing basketball at West Point? And can you share a particularly funny or memorable story involving your teammates or your coaches? Doesn't have to be
Hmm.
just one.
Um, could I have the question again, please?
Sure. Just give us a favorite memory of your time playing basketball and maybe a memorable story or something funny that happened on your team or
Oh,
with the coaches.
okay. Yeah. So one of the benefits also of playing is that we actually got to go away one weekend. I think it was one weekend. And it it was really memorable because at that time, freshmen, plebes didn't get to go anywhere. And now we were going to get the opportunity to actually leave the post and spend time overnight somewhere. And I know it sounds so simple to so many people, but as we all understand, that was a really big deal at the time.
Hmm.
And I remember we had breakfast at Howard Johnson's. I don't know if we actually stayed there or something like that, but Captain Dornick had told us we could have anything on the menu. And obviously, having gone through what we went through, that was a very unique thing where you didn't just eat whatever put in front of you and shovel it down kind of thing. And being away was actually probably one of the highlights of for me that semester was the fact that we actually got to go outside the gates and stay somewhere that was not our own bed back in the barracks, and that was a lot of fun.
Very cool. Reggie, do you have a favorite memory or a funnier story?
I do have a favorite memory and story, and it's kind of reflective of all of us and how we played so hard and aggressive during the games. And that was that I either stole or I recovered the ball on the sideline, and the opponent came from behind and wrapped her arms around me to get the ball. And I instinctively bent forward very forcefully and threw her over my back. And she landed on the sideline in front of all people, General Goodpaster. Um, and that's something that I will always remember. But I think that that represents just how we were totally into the game and how we did what we had to do to be able to uh, help lead ourselves to success.
To win. Yes. Carol, do you have a favorite memory playing basketball or a funny story?
You know, I wish I could say that I could. For me, I think that the essence to capture here is that we at West Point are unlike any other school, any other institution, because what you have is you have a group of people who are captured 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you live with one another. And so on that team together, you stand together, you fight together, you bleed together. I'll never forget Colleen Brennan and Christi running into each other, at practice, because we practiced as hard as we played, and the two of them just killing each other they were like with pugil sticks on the, so it's the whole essence of a camaraderie that few people get to feel. And no matter how long it's been that you've seen each other, I can close my eyes and still feel like I'm on the court with every one of you. And that's the best part of it.
Very cool. Very special. I'm going to skip a question here. Uh, Reggie, can you talk about what you did after you completed your Army service?
Sure. When I retired from the Army, I spent the majority of my last working life years working as an engineering manager for a defense contractor on programs that were critical intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance programs supporting our warfighter efforts, including things like a National Reconnaissance Office satellite, um, the Gray Eagle MQ-1C drone, and the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter Catbird flying test bed. They were all extremely stressful, demanding, and important jobs, but they were also extremely rewarding. And I'm very happily retired now, and I will let you ladies know that I am still leading the pack as I'm happily retired, turning 70 this year.
Wow.
Hey,
Wow.
Breaking that barrier.
congratulations. Carol, tell us what you've been doing since you completed your Army service.
In 2012, I started a nonprofit called Heaven on Earth for Veterans, where we house homeless and at-risk veterans. We have 8 houses in South St. Petersburg, Florida. The veterans rent a bedroom and they share the common areas. And so they are veterans who have been homeless, veterans who have had issues with drugs, have issues with their credit rating. And over the years, we've had over 275 veterans come through our doors. That pretty much keeps me busy, on and off 24/7. And in fact, this weekend, there's a golf tournament right around Veterans Day. And we are getting the proceeds from that golf tournament. So it's been a busy week for me getting ready for that. So it's pretty rewarding to be able to do that. And yeah, I'm pretty busy.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. I'm sure the vets are very, very happy for the service that you're providing them. Let's go back to Ellie. Ellie, what message would you like to share with current and future members of the West Point women's basketball team?
Well, it really relates to what we were talking about earlier, and it's be the best you can be on a team, be supportive of your teammates because they're trying to do the same thing, and never be afraid to ask for help.
Mhm. Beautiful. Okay, guys, I want to hear from all of you on this question. What does it mean to you to be a West Point alumna, I guess, and a former basketball player? Let's see, Christy, can we start with you?
Certainly. I wasn't on the list for that one. Uh,
Yes, you were. It said all of you.
well, I must have missed that. Anyway, I the experience was something I will never forget, and the friendships were key to actually making it through. So, but after that, I think I felt more lost in the shuffle
Mhm.
than than experienced the military through being a West Point graduate. It was I didn't take that as um, something as special as I probably should have, but I just felt like I was part of the Army. I was part of Air Defense Artillery. Those kind of things where it blended more rather than standing out as being a graduate. I didn't use that in any way. That I certainly had the full experience, but after graduation, I felt like the Army was as a whole and necessarily as an alumni and an officer. It was much more of just just being an officer. And I think that could in part be that the people that I served with were not in most cases West Point graduates. I think there was
Mhm.
one or two that within my sphere that were, but most everybody was from somewhere else, graduated from somewhere else, received their commission um, through ROTC, or I think we had one person who had gotten that through OCS. But as far as making it a standout because I was alumni, it didn't happen for me.
Gotcha. Reggie, what does it mean for you to be a West Point alum and a former basketball player?
As far as being a former basketball player, unlike some others on this conference call, I only spent 2 years on the basketball team and recognized that I was quickly being replaced by really talented basketball players that came in, like you, Dina. And so I moved on to cross country and indoor and outdoor track. So the basketball experience was extremely beneficial to me as far as having that camaraderie, and of course the skills that you learn being a good team player carry on throughout your life. Um, as far as being a West Point graduate, I think there was still a newness of that when we graduated, that the regular Army in many cases didn't even know that women had attended, let alone graduated and were commissioned from West Point.
Hmm.
So, being a West Pointer, while I personally feel very privileged and honored to be a graduate, it's not something that I leverage. I don't participate in alumni activities or things of that nature, but certainly the West Point experience has added to the foundation of my life.
Absolutely. There's 5,500 of us now, ladies. Ellie,
Awesome.
Really?
yeah,
Yeah,
Ellie, what does it mean for you?
well, so it really did make a difference for me being a West Point graduate. Both in the Army, I was given more responsibility than a lot of my peers because they knew I would get it done. And then once I got out, I only had like 3 job interviews throughout my career, but for every one, the first one was with a defense contractor, and my bosses would be military retirees. So they, of course, knew what the academy was. But every interview I had, um, even working when I got hired by the U.S. Geological Survey, that boss had been the chair of the geophysics department at the University of Washington, and he had Naval Academy graduates that had worked, as students for him, working on PhDs. And so for every one of those interviews, it was, them telling me about the job, seeing if I would fit into the organization, and then, do you want the job? And yes, I do. So, so that really worked out for me. And then as far as being a basketball player, hey, I'm good to say I'm part of this esteemed group, the whole range of women basketball players. It's pretty awesome.
Hmm. I agree. Carol, what do you think? What does it mean to you?
Well, you know what? I can honestly say that if I was 17 again, I would do it again. I know some sounds crazy, but I would. I would do this again um, because I think it has a lot to do with where I am today. And I'm very proud to have had this experience. And then, the thing that I would also say with being a basketball player and just kind of even talking to the women, one of the things that I think that our class and maybe some of the women early on after us, we didn't learn quickly enough was to kind of turn around and help the other women behind us. Um,
Yeah.
I think there are a number of women who said, hey, I made it, you make it yourself, instead of turning around and saying, listen, here's how I can help you make it too. And so we need that. We need that. We need to continue to do that with our sisterhood, because I also learned that failing at West Point isn't failure. And which is wonderful, because I'm not afraid of failure at all. I will try anything. And I think I got that from West Point, because I failed so many times there. I got my ass chewed so many times there. So I'm not afraid of that anymore. And, you know, for those young women who are there now in the future, you know, grab it all, do it all, and take care of each other.